So good afternoon to all. On behalf of Department of Clinical Research and Incubation Center of MIMER Medical College, Talegaon, Pune, I welcome all the faculty, students, and all the distinguished participants for this webinar on a very interesting topic called artificial intelligence and its scope in this pandemic. We all know that the country is battling through a very difficult war-like condition. Probably it is the worst pandemic ever in the human history. Clinicians all over the world, researchers, technocrats, administrators, they all are battling and giving their best to fight against this pandemic. But it seems that still victory is too far from our reach. Probably we need something more than what we are already using, something more to augment the abilities of a human mind. And probably artificial intelligence can turn out to be one such tool which can turn out to be indispensable for humanity in this war. So with that, I wish to welcome Professor Dr. Arun Jamkar sir, who is our own Director of Postgraduate Academics, Research and Development of MIT Group of Medical Colleges. We need not officially introduce sir, but just to mention that sir has been the Vice Chancellor of the prestigious Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, Nashik. He is also a consultant to many IT firms like Persistent, and he is a Chief Medical Officer of on an intelligence design, artificial intelligence based project in Stanford University, USA. So with that, I like to hand over the reins to Jamkar sir.
Thank you, Darpan. At the outset, let me first thank Department of Clinical Research and Incubation Center at the prestigious MIMER Medical College, Talegaon, for inviting me to talk on a very innovative topic, as I suppose, artificial intelligence in scope of COVID pandemic. At outset, I must congratulate Darpan, Jason, and the whole team of Department of Clinical Research, because they have motivated whole college, and then whole college is tuned for doing more and more research. And obviously this is under guidance and motivation by our executive director, Nagre Madam, and our founder president, Dr. Vishwanath Ji Karar. So with this brief background, I will try to go ahead. I must thank Darpan for creating this nice visual. And obviously the solution for this, the lock of coronavirus, maybe people think it's in hands of artificial intelligence. This is me, who has been introduced. Now, as I said, I work at several companies as a consultant, and one of the company which deals with AI system in corona is what is called Rises.com, and Ajit Deshpande is working on that. He's a president, and he is contributed, and I'll just ask him sometimes to just highlight. Recently, I gave a same lecture on MIT School of Engineering, then for MIT World Peace University, and in MIT School of Bioengineering. So let me first ask you, with all this corona going on everywhere, how are you? This question was asked to Superman, and then his wife says, aren't you going to do something to fight the coronavirus? And he says, I'm doing it by staying at home. Now, at the outset, whole world has been working on some other priorities rather than viral epidemics and pandemics. Now, this is a TED talk given by Bill Gates in 2015, where he said we are all only prepared for nuclear war, and then we never prepared for virus. And because the next war won't be any nuclear war, it will be virus war. And then it is pandemic, and we are now no epidemiologists, we are no hospitals. And in short, he says we are not ready.
When I was a kid, the disaster we worried about most was a nuclear war. That's why we had a barrel like this down in our basement, filled with cans of food and water. When the nuclear attack came, we were supposed to go downstairs, hunker down, and eat out of that barrel. Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
Now, let me first remind you, we all know about virus, but then this corona is very peculiar. And then maybe it is a man-made virus which accidentally came out, or maybe something. But then viruses, all these viruses, they are very intelligent. They are actually not organisms also. But then they behave in such a way that that's, I think, a perfect story. They just capture your cell.
They most likely attach to angiotensin-converting enzyme 2 receptors on the cell membrane, allowing the virus entry. The exact mechanism for this is not known. Most likely, as shown here, the human cell ingests the virus in a process known as endocytosis. Once inside the cytoplasm, the endosome opens to reveal the virus's genetic material, a single-stranded RNA. The virus hijacks the cell's machinery to replicate the RNA in N proteins and uses the endoplasmic reticulum to form its M protein outer layer and the all-important S protein. After replication, the virus is carried by the Golgi bodies out of the cell in a process known as exocytosis, so that it can infect other cells. Meanwhile, stress of viral production on the endoplasmic reticulum eventually leads to apoptosis, or cell death. It should be noted that the mechanism of action for 2019 novel coronavirus is unknown. However, scientists in China have sequenced the genome, while others have used the sequencing to visualize the structure.
So basically, we need to understand that this is an entirely different organism and it's entirely new. And we just want to find out where, for all these mechanisms, artificial intelligence can help. So basically, I'm just going to introduce afterward, but then k-means clustering are going to work on the genetic context. So let us discuss about the role of AI in fighting COVID. So what is AI? So everybody's talking about AI, ML. ML is machine learning, AI is artificial intelligence, and it's called DL, deep learning. So AI is defined as a machine with intelligent behavior such as perception, reasoning, and then it has the ability to perform itself. And therefore, the whole thing of AI pertains to various aspects. And then initially, AI addressed Jeopardy. Then it played better than Kasparov in the Go, say in chess. And then the lowest hanging fruit was image handling. And because image handling is very powerful in AI, and for image handling, you require what is called as a GPU, graphic process, instead of CPU. So the CPU was following what's called Moore's law. And then suddenly the GPU is taking so ahead that it is faster than Moore's law. And this is with NVIDIA. I went there and there is a huge mural called I am an AI, and even the t-shirt is available. So let me just first introduce various terms and how they can be used. The other thing is what is called as IoT. So Internet of Things. So all devices, vehicles, appliances, everything which connects to internet is called IoT. And then IoT is exploding. There might be 50 billion IoTs by now. And then what is called as, now we are going ahead and calling it Internet of Healthy Things, where all these IoTs required for health are connected. And then IoTs, Internet of Healthy Things could be various. It could be headsets. It could be clothes, sensing devices, BP monitors, glucose monitors, ECG monitors. So there is a list going on. And now these all IoTs are now at present with very successfully used. The classical example is thermal sensors used for scan, say, temperature. These are used as the airports or where the large gathering is there. Then they are just finding out the aerial thermography and winding out the areas to the roads. And then other thing which is what's called the wearables. So wearables are all say things which are put on body, and then they can sense, they can do a lot of functions. Now classically I have this Apple Watch which has an ECG and which has the pulse rate and everything, and so much so that I can program the Apple Watch. Let us say I'm playing tennis, I just say remind me at 140 pulse rate, it reminds, and it is so intelligent that if while taking in service I just slip, it says have fallen down. So I think same thing mechanisms could be done. Now these variables are very commonly used in managing oncology, and then there's something called the breath omics, and then breath omics are the one which can monitor your respiration, and there are all these what is called variables coming in big way. This come the scheme where it can take all the stress level, sleep quality, activity, temperature, which is variable. This is something like a say undergarment, and then we have got the many biosense. So this is this gives you everything again from heart rate, live ECG, steps, and this could be say made available for corona to monitor. And then this is, I think, the best thing which can be used in monitoring corona. This is a variable technology, but it's called RespiraSense, which can monitor your respiratory rate, and then it can even give, say, FEV1. So all our patients of corona, when they are say they are what you call as asymptomatic, and they can be monitored with these wearing with the devices. So let us go ahead. There are various grades of AI in healthcare, with telemedicine, patient-facing chatbots, mental health, drug discovery. Series goes on, and there might be a lot of things which can happen with AI. It can identify, track, and forecast outbreak. It can diagnose virus. It can process the healthcare claims. It can give a cognitive analysis of the COVID pandemic. It can sterilize, deliver a food. So these are, I think, various things. I'm not, because this is AI is such a big topic. I'm just going to address 4 or 5 things out of them here. So now the problem at present today is there is so much of information and so much of knowledge available about corona, about COVID in various aspects, that the Director General of WHO, he says, we are not just fighting an epidemic, we are just fighting what's called infodemic. So much of information, and there is an excessive growth. Now, because everybody wanted that all publications should be fast, all discovery should be converted into advantage toward the patient, and therefore this is the rise of publication. 30,000 publications are coming in here, and this is what is called as a biggest problem is what is called as big data. So much of data is being pushed. Now big data earlier also was a problem, but now it's a problem because there is big data available in all aspects of corona. Now this big data cannot be used by individual physician because itself is meaningless, and then the explosion of knowledge and everything is beyond our capacity, and you require an AI system to identify what is going on. And then I think this big data has to be done, and what is required is we need to find out how the big data could be managed. I'm going to talk this in detail little later. There are 3 main paradigms: the symbolic, where we can do AI with a logic based; statistical, where we have probabilistic methods and machine learning; and then sub-symbolic, where we have embodied intelligence. So this whole goes into knowledge, perception, communication, reasoning, and this whole paradigms can be used for corona. So let me just describe you the various aspects. Now AI, it's any technique which can enable computer to mimic human reaction. But then what is called the machine learning? Now machine learning is a subset of AI where it learns by itself, and therefore if AI system is exposed to more data, it improves itself. So I think that is the whole advantage of ML. And then we have deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, and these algorithms compared, say they train themselves to perform tasks like speech, image recognition, everything. Now everybody has a Google photo. In a Google photo, all photos of your data are classified, and then they classify, and then all your friends, the moment you click one, all photos of that in Google photo they come. Same thing happens with Facebook. They also do. So this whole thing is a deep learning. So let me give examples. IBM Deep Blue, electronic game changer, these are all AI. IBM Watson, Google Research algorithm, ML, and then natural speech recognition, everything becomes a deep learning. And then let us go little, I will just go to not much because this is all engineering. And what is more important is all this ML. And ML, we have what is called as two types, unsupervised learning and supervised learning. And then we have what is called clustering, classification, regression. These are all engineering terms. So in a supervised learning and unsupervised, supervised learning, it is exposed to say one set of images or data which is controlled, whereas unsupervised, it learns by itself. And then you can have reinforcement. And then there are various types of say unsupervised learning called as PCA. Then we have clustering with K-mean clustering, hierarchical clustering. And this I'm not going to go in much detail. It's for engineering, but as if we are interested in say medicine as applied to AI, you need to understand all of them. And then these are the various aspects of deep learning, where AI, ML, and then it gives you the better scope. Now, in a deep learning, we have input and we have output. So let us say we are diagnosing cancer cell in histopathology, and we have to give them all those data, and then outcome is whether it is cancer or not. And then we have a lot many hidden layers available, and therefore number of hidden layers make it complex. And then the lowest hanging fruit is what's called the image handling, where all the images in medicine are available. Say microbiology, histopathology, radiology, cardiac imaging, fundoscopy, you name it. And all these imaging, we have AI systems available. So we have same thing. We have a label data. So let us say Tom, Jerry, Jerry. Then we do data cleaning, create algorithm to first we do data cleaning and give configuration. So what is Tom and what is Jerry, and then subsequently it is trained, and then if it is exposed to an image, then it can classify. So this is going into little more detail. So we have a data preparation, integration, cleaning, and then we have what's called feature engineering cycle. Then we generate features and then model, then extract, and then the new image comes, it deploys, and the trained model can come out. So I think this is a process which is followed. And what is required is data. And India being blessed with a lot of patients and lot of data, so this data availability is a boon for us. So what I want all of us to do is to find out how can we use that all data. So now this is the future, that early efforts, and slowly AI is catching human intelligence, and maybe another 10-15 years it could go still ahead, but then it's still not a challenge. So I'm just going to use some examples of image handling being done in AI. So skin, now there is an article in Nature where the skin diseases diagnosed were better than a dermatologist with the AI system. Then the thing which is most important is diabetic retinopathy, which is approved by FDA for screening diabetic retinopathy. And then all these changes are specific, small, and then they can be done. And FDA has approved so that the diabetic screening of say retinopathy can be done. Other thing where everything is done is lung, or they say vertebral fractures, aneurysms. So everywhere we can do that. And then I can give some examples of lung, where this is a neural network, and then there are two X-rays, a frontal X-ray and lateral X-ray. And you can see all the changes there, which can be diagnosed. And then you can see this is one of the network, where on an average it is 69 to 72%. And then another thing coming with a Rajapurkar, where these are the images and they are matching being done. And then in the ChexNet, these are all networks. And then we can see the radiologist and algorithms are almost same. And therefore, somewhere they are doing still better. Now the maximum conquest that we did, and we found out in mammogram, because mammograms are very difficult to understand, and all this configuration of all those shadows, they become very difficult. And therefore, these are all papers. And then we have the deep learning algorithms available in mammogram. And so much so that the sensitivity has risen. And then this is a paper which says that radiology resident is here, the neural network is going beyond. So the accuracy is improving with neural network, and this was the biggest paper of 25,000 say American and 3,000 British women, and where the mammograms were shown, and then all these mammograms, the diagnosis was better than a panel of 7 to 8 radiologists. So this was a paper published recently in Nature, January 20. So with this background, are we able to apply these AI systems for radiology? Now, the moment say we do radiology for corona, now X-ray chest, or maybe CT scan. So what happens is, if you follow this workflow, so instead the DICOM image coming to scanner, where you can put an AI system, and then the accuracy can improve, and it can give you help to a radiologist to give a better understanding, and it will help to give a confirmed diagnosis as fast as possible. So this is one. And then I just talked with Ajit. Now this is his work, where he has been trying to do something on AI systems in radiology. Please just clarify these slides, 3-4 slides.
Sure. Yeah, so thank you, sir. This is Ajit Deshpande. I am head of this Rises Analytics Solutions. We are an AI company, and what we worked on the treatment response assessment for the pulmonary diseases. And this slide, we focused more on the chest X-rays and detection of the COVID. So this slide shows the various models. Like we compared benchmarked our model against University of Waterloo model, and then we calculated recall, precision, and F1 score. So these are the geometric means and various statistical parameters what we use. And this is the first is a Rises 3 class model, and it's a binary model. And the bottom you see where it is COVID pneumonia and non-COVID pneumonia. So we compared against the industry benchmark, and our results are much better. Yeah, so this slide is about the opacity detection. So the ground truth is given by the actual radiologist. And in first case, they have put some bounding boxes for lung opacity. In our case, our accuracies are here about 96% in first case. And second case, the radiologist might have ignored it because it's very mild infection or mild opacity. And so we were able to detect that one. And in third case also, we are able to detect 98%. And this slide is about the difference. The patient was exposed 7 months before to radiation, and radiation pneumonitis is the diagnosis. And what we found is between 2 visits, 7 months apart, the radiograph shows the difference in the size of bounding box. So this is an indication that we are able to do the difference analysis, very useful for the doctor.
Thank you, Ajit. So basically, what is required, because a visual image of a shadow in an X-ray chest is a visual image, whereas an AI can look at that image through different angles, because AI looks at the physical properties, like how much is contrast, how much is the wavelength, so how much is opacity. So I think these things could be better diagnosed because of it's a physical property. And therefore, this is a paper of 10 and 1014 patients, which said that it has been found it's a better. So what is important is a AI system has to diagnose the changes before it is diagnosed, so that even if 1 or 2 days before, if radiology, the AI system is able to give you the diagnosis, it will improve the mortality. And this is the same paper where the sensitivity was 97%, and it was supposed to be one of the best paper available. Now, similarly, people are doing of AI system for say CT scan. Now, this is another guy from Ahmedabad, Dr. Sachin Sharma, who presented his idea, and then he was also saying same thing, that they have developed into these shadows are so particular that they can be detected before even say RT-PCR test. So let us go to next. So how we are doing for doing epidemiology? I think AI is something which can help in epidemiology. Now AI first tried by Madhav Marathi in New York, where there was one patient of smallpox, which accidentally was traveling in a tube, and then New York state government decided to immunize everybody in New York. So Madhav Marathe came into picture. He gave a gas system mathematical model depending on all physical parameters, the wind speed and the train speed and everything. And then he was able to say that just immunize this 10%. And as a net result, it saved at least $1 billion. So once the whole AI, say whole epidemic started coming, then Google started doing this, that Google's DeepMind just share an AI-related predictions, and that could give epidemiology. But the best thing that was happened with a company called Bluedot.com, where they did a fantastic thing. They just found out the whole travel pattern coming from China, and then they were able to find out and exactly predict when it will come. So this video will tell you.
This coronavirus seems to have shaken up life as we know it. Inevitably, it's going to continue to spread. But how far and fast that's going to happen and what we're going to do about it are still in question. So could artificial intelligence play a vital part in providing some answers and maybe even improving the outcome? AI had an important role in the initial understanding of this outbreak. Canadian specialist Bluedot deals with global epidemic intelligence and identified very early on that something was amiss through a combination of medical and airline data.
We were one of the first groups in the world that identified this outbreak. This was back actually on New Year's Eve day, the morning of December 31st. The machine learning algorithms that we've developed had picked up information in Chinese of a pneumonia, wasn't known to be a coronavirus, of unknown cause, centered around this market in Wuhan. When it was presented to our team, we recognized that there were parallels to the SARS outbreak 17 years earlier. So we knew immediately that there were some historic parallels here and that this outbreak really warranted our attention.
And this is where the human scientists were needed.
AI can alert, but can't yet do the investigation to say what's really occurring.
Detecting an outbreak is really just the first step. There are multiple other things that need to happen. Ultimately, we need to determine what kinds of risks does this pose? Is it likely to spread? If it's going to spread, where might it go? What kind of consequences might occur from that spread? And then ultimately, we have to get that information into the hands of people who can then be empowered with that information to take the appropriate actions.
This coronavirus.
So I think this is most important, that any viral epidemic or pandemic coming, when it starts, an AI model can find out how it's going to spread, because the world is a small place. There's so much of thing going on. And I think this whole thing would be applicable for tomorrow. For any pandemic that is coming. Other thing which can come is a drug discovery. Now, AI systems can help you for creating new drugs, having the new drug trials, shortening the scope, say decreasing the number of what we call as patients. So Pfizer first used IBM Watson for immuno-oncology drug. Sanofi signed a deal with UK startup Exsentia for metabolic disease therapies. Then Roche subsidiaries did for, say, treating cancers. And so these are the various examples of patients, say, where the drugs have been discovered. Now, how can you apply this for corona? Now, AI system can identify what exactly is going on, and therefore, suppose there are several drugs available, there are lot many things available which can be common, and then we have open drug databases, and then can we repurpose them and do something new? So as a net result, all those molecules which can be worked, they are in millions, and whether something out of them can work. And I think another company called Benevolent.
One day, AI might be able to conjure up necessary vaccines on the spot, or repurpose drugs to deal with new challenges. The latter being something benevolent AI in London is already leading the way on. This company uses AI to better understand the mechanism of disease, correlating data on illnesses, drugs, and outcomes, and providing more information than any human being could ever come up with. And in this case, a potential lead. What are we looking at here?
This is a demonstration of our algorithm processing documents in real time, reading the abstracts of scientific publications to do with coronavirus, and extracting relationships between key biological concepts that we really care about to carry out drug discovery.
And at this point, we're just a few months into an outbreak that could really, really grow. How meaningful do you think this data is so far?
There's a huge amount of information being published. We're not just putting out coronavirus information, but we're merging it with a lot of existing publications on underlying biology. Our algorithms reason over biology at multiple layers, from the nanoworld of proteins interacting on our cells, through this maze of biological processes, up to human-defined definitions of diseases.
It's very early days for the process, but it is suggesting what might be worth further investigation.
Now, a lot of people were looking at virals, antivirals, and how they might potentially, treat the disease. We looked at it from a completely different way. We said, what are the other types of approved drugs that might inhibit the progression of that disease in the body? So we surfaced a number of drugs, and then we did some experimentation based on that and further research. And then we came up with this one drug that we think is best suited. It has both anti-inflammatory properties as well as the ability to stop what's called endocytosis, which is what enables the virus to enter the lungs, which is the most potentially dangerous outcome of the coronavirus.
The company stresses this is only conjecture, and although the drug in question is approved for use in rheumatoid arthritis, clinical trials and full scientific evidence would be needed before it could even come close to being used for this purpose.
What we're trying to do is use this technology in the service of science to further the development of novel treatments for diseases that currently have no treatment. Like right now in the world, there's over 9,000 diseases that have no treatment.
Well, AI will play a greater role than it has already, because what's being done is genetic sequences are being taken. That is the understanding of the...
One day.
So the whole advantage of the AI was they were able to find out this what is called a baricitinib, which has both the properties of associated with protein kinase and GAK, and therefore suppose this is an action, whereas you can see that this drug, say, which was screened out of 1 billion molecules, and therefore I don't think it is used, but I think this is one thing which can come. So AI systems could be, say, required for all biological data mining, and there is so much of data available on drug developments, various drugs available and various uses, and there's small things could be done. So other thing is, all those drugs which are already available, can you put them for the use of corona, what is called as repurposing drug, and there are several models available. So basically AI system can help you to identify which drugs can be used, and those which are already used, then they can be what is called as a second therapeutic use. Now intensive cares, we can do monitoring remotely, and then all these real-time monitoring of ventilators and all those say waves could be done, and with a wearable technology you could do the changes which are there, and the AI system can help and intensivist for diagnosing. Then other thing is vaccine. So in AI systems are being used thoroughly for vaccines, because the problem with say corona is there are so many molecules available, there are so many antigens available, and therefore we need to find out which one of them could be useful for developing antibody and protection. And therefore now AI system has given you a clue that any fragment of virus where this is the component GFQ, PTND, So if that component is there, then it is going to protect. And this component is available on spike cells or spike nuclear proteins. And I think this whole thing was going ahead. And then there is a system available called Maria, MSC analyzer with recruitment of integrated architecture, where it was able to identify how those antigens are present into HLA2, how the epitopes are there, and then which were able to find out. So the new techniques are going to find out how these
scientists at the National Institute of Health are looking to create a vaccine that originated in China. But they're not starting from scratch. They're employing an approach called vaccine rapid response platforms. It involves high-tech methods that have the potential to shave years off of development time. Ideally, they'd offer protection while an epidemic was still spreading, instead of years later. Within weeks of the world learning about the Wuhan outbreak, Chinese scientists uploaded the novel coronavirus's genetic sequence to a public database that allowed teams around the world to start designing a vaccine. Traditional methods require an actual sample of the virus. Typically, scientists inactivate a virus using special chemicals before it's put into a vaccine. When the inactivated or weakened virus is injected into the body, the immune system recognizes it as a foreign invader or an antigen. Vaccines use antigens to prime the body to protect against a particular virus. But vaccines developed with rapid response platforms work differently. Rather than directly injecting antigens into the body, these types of vaccines typically send instructions to cells in the body. It gets the cells to produce antigen proteins that are specific to the virus it's designed to defeat. These instructions are in the form of RNA or DNA, the molecules that contain the code for building proteins. Scientists say this process cuts down on development time because they don't have to grow the whole virus. Plus, once scientists identify and create the instructions for one virus, they can tweak those instructions to make a vaccine for a similar virus.
So think of the backbone.
So the AI system can just help you to find out which component is available for the growth. And so in persistent, we are doing another approach called a biometric approach, where all those epitomes which are available against T cell or B cell, and then there are several 80 to 90 epitomes available. And with a, say, AI system or what's called as a bioinformatics spacing, you can identify whether all those epitomes are available in that given vaccine. Now, lastly, we come to applications which are clinical. So clinical management, because everybody thinks that AI could be used for clinical management. And as I said, there's explosive growth. And what all these papers are telling about, are you able to flatten the curve? Is the climate is going to have, say, effect? And how we can have less data available for treating these patients. Now, one of the things which came was cytokine storm. Now, the cytokine storm is the poor reactivity of whole immunological system, and therefore this is the one which is mediated through IL-6. And I thought, whether we are seeing IL-6, and then I did my PhD in interleukins. So going through the articles, I realized that tocilizumab is the one which is available for IL-6, and therefore to begin with, 3 months before, I put it on LinkedIn that this is the one which can be used, and maybe it's a parallel action, people starting using it. Other thing, there are several drugs available. There's something like ivermectin, and then there is a lot of what you call as discussion about hydroxychloroquine, and people think that it's a all pharma lobby which is working against CQ. CQ is so cheap that if it is useful, then all the investment of pharma lobby will go on. And then we have several trials coming with hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and then which came about pulmonary vascular endothelitis, where we have to give, say, antiplatelet inhibitors, and then became remdesivir. So what I'm trying to tell you is there is so much of knowledge available, and therefore how can all these knowledge be engulfed and given some true output? And then Google can, with this, what is called as COVID-19 Research Explorer. Now, this is an AI developed system where all those more than 100,000 articles are there, and which is tuned by say what you call it as metamorphs and meta-analysis done. And then if you ask any question in this, it gives you a total answer of going to the AI system, and then latest knowledge available to all these say what you call it, data available. So I think this is one. It's called as a COVID-19 Research Explorer. Then we have something called as COVID Scholar, which is again another AI system to identify all those advances and publications, which is with what is called as NLP algorithms. Now, a lot many people are coming, and therefore, the intellectuals need to work. And this is another Kaggle.com, where we can participate in a competition. And then Kaggle.com is available for Corona and COVID, and therefore all these things can be done. So now required is we have been treating so much of patients in India, and all this data is not available. We are just following Western say knowledge, and therefore what is required is a Watson type mechanism where they think of everything. The doctor's note, wearable say wearables outcome, and even written notes. And the Watson does it with the text and speech, and then Watson is available. So what is required is we need to create a mechanism by which we have a, I just want to suggest that AI system could be used for what's called as a cluster-based analysis. So we can have clusters based on clinical picture, radiology, hormone status, cytokine status, then maybe serum ferritin, procalcitonin, pro-BNP, interleukin, and then the interventions could become through all the things are available at present, and then monitor the parameter, and then we have outcome which can come by machine learning to the intervention. So the real use of machine learning would be done. So what I'm trying to do is with the AI do networking of all clinical data across the globe using database handling models. You have to crystallize those data, then cognitive domain analysis of all these infodemic, and then we have real-time dynamic outcome of all intervention. So this is all AI. So depending on that, we need to use because all these AI would be useful. There might be some micro successes which can't be validated by statistics, but then they could be used. And then we have an extrapolation of some small sample size. That whole thing will come together, and then all this data with an AI system analysis is available for clinical use. So the problem is all Indian data is not digitized. So I was just talking with some of the companies where they can digitize data, maybe Sassoon data or maybe MIMER data, because all in paper format. So again, I talked with the TCS, and they were willing to digitize the data. At the end, we want to find out how else we can use a system for other clinical management. So early detection, diagnosis, monitoring, and check the accuracy of diagnosis and contact tracing. So let us say simple example. Now we want to diagnose early. Now somebody has gone and identified that a cough of a positive corona, say COVID patient, has a different frequency. And therefore, what he did, he converted into an AI model where the patient has to just cough in front of a mobile. And those voice records are uploaded to cloud, and they are diagnosed with AI, and then they can use suspicion of corona or COVID. So I think this simple technology can help us. So this is a paper where it was reasonably 98% confident. Now, what is required for all of us, all our medical students who are available here, we need to think out of box. Now, we are at MIT, there are a lot of engineering colleges, a lot of computer colleges, a lot of everybody is working. So if all of you have any idea like this, you can approach me, or you can approach to MIT TD and what's called a Technology Development Board. And I just got one call from Mr. Pradeep Dage, that they want to help us and maybe collaborate with medical college resident students with computer institutes in MIT, and therefore we can put together and find out how better we can do for all these. So I think this is the message I want to give to all students, that we need to look out of box to find out what could be work, because we have both the knowledge. Now doctors are using AI system to say track coronavirus outbreak. Then like I said, the face recognition is available, so we can do that face recognition for say corona patient while they are coming in. Now now suppose you want to do say biometric, so putting finger would not help. So DRDO has developed an AI based system face recognition, so that they did not touch anything. Now Google is coming with Apple to identify contact tracing, and then IIT Kharagpur, they have developed a system for social distancing, because it gives a signal. The moment another somebody comes, it gives a signal, so you can go ahead. And we already know about Arogya Setu. It's not AI system, but then it can find out to help about distancing. Now similar thing is available in China, that the moment you go to an area which has a containment zone, it gives you red signal. Now my suggestion to all of you is, we need to think in that direction, that how can we use that whole AI system for day-to-day use. So corona is there, then there might be something otherwise available, and then we need to just contact somebody, and so that all your medical problems which have AI solution or whichever technology solution can come together, and then both together can do something. And MIT, MIMER will always try to help you. So this Department of Clinical Research is bent upon helping you to do all these things. And now the startups are coming. Government of India wants you to have startups. I think is one area where we need to think out of box. Suppose you want to do something, you require AI model. These are the various AI model available. They're all available free. So TensorFlow, Google Cloud Platform, Torch, Keras. So these are all available. These are all. Now what I'm trying to do is, the whole thing is available for recording, and then you can connect. At the end, I just want to talk about remote management, that AI system can be helped to give you triage without touching the patient. And this is the paper available. And I was surprised, because MIMER and Persistent put together, we have created this iDoctor intelligent drug dispensing system, which is based on say symptom-based algorithm. So we could just have ENT symptoms, and then it can put in a flu OPD, where the patient has to just sit on the machine, just key in the symptoms, and then all those symptoms, the moment we can have auscultation available, we can have breath sounds available, and then without touching the patient, the doctor sitting next room can find out that whether you are suspicion of AI, say suspicion of COVID, and then they can admit. And I think this is the one which can help you to keep the doctor safe. Now our machine, which takes blood pressure, it has pulse oximeter, so this is one thing which can help, because if there is a low PO2, then it can suspect about COVID. Then thermometer, body fat, ECG. So these whole things are available as POCs. So I think this could be used. Now this is one which we already used. Now it's a MIMER persistent project with the BIRAC is in the final stage, and where we have a drug dispensing ATM which directly gives a drug. This for the rural settings available, or maybe for the patients who are in the high volume OPD. AI can be used in Ayurveda, and I just wanted them to go into the basic pathologies and their own philosophy of dosha, agni, dhatu, malla, indriya, and then they could be doing a cluster analysis and find out how does the corona or COVID comes into that, and then put interventions, and then we can do monitor by the modern medicine, and that drug can be given. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for such an fascinating lecture. We honestly, we were not aware that artificial intelligence has really so many implications and so many applications in the treatment of COVID. Like we can keep a watch on the spread of the pandemic in drug discovery system, data mining, ICU management, and even vaccine development. Listening to your talk, we are somewhat relieved and probably hopeful also that in the coming days, with the help of artificial intelligence, we might be able to find a, a cure or some kind of a solution to this ever emerging pandemic. You rightly pointed it out, sir, that digitization of the data is a very big avenue, and India with a patient base of around 8 lakh today, so it will be a major contributor to to the available data, which can be definitely very useful for finding a solution. I hope the administrators take a note of this and come up with some strategy which will link all the COVID treating institutes of the country under a one national registry. I again wholeheartedly thank you, sir. Along with that, I also thank Mr. Ajit Deshpande, sir, CEO of Rises, and Dr. Narayana, who is also from Rises, who had joined us for this webinar. So with that, we come to end of this session. I thank all the participants for their patient hearing, and that I come to the end of this seminar. Thank you. Thank you, sir, once again.
Are you taking some questions?
If there are some questions, sir, I'll just go through the chat. No, I don't see any questions on it, sir, but if there are any questions, they can be referred to email ID research@mitmimer.com, research@mitmimer.com. They will be diverted to Jamkar, sir, and we'll see to it that they are answered.
Now, we'll put this recording on my website as well.
Right,
I have
sir.
a website called arunjamkar.com. And other thing which I wanted you to consider is I got a phone call from Mr. Pradeep Dhage, who is a what's called TBI. We have a TBI in MIT where they wanted to have collaborative research in areas of technology for health.
Right.
So let us develop into some collaboration because you are doing such a great job. So suppose we have more people, we can have combined lectures with computer engineering students, maybe, or we require everything because we require mechanical engineering, we require electrical. So all those students can solve our healthcare problems because tomorrow everything will be healthcare. Maybe more than 40 to 50% of all the projects across the world would be healthcare. And therefore, because everybody wants to improve the quality of healthcare, I think we need to do more research and innovation in healthcare area. And that's why I think Nagre Madam has set up a nice precedence by establishing your Department of Clinical Research and Innovation.
Right, sir. These are really very important inputs, sir. We'll try to see how it can be brought to the use and benefit us all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.